Hi friends, welcome to An Invitation. Today I'm here with Marcie Foley, my friend, and we are going to teach you how to make the easiest filet in the world. This is something you can do at home, and I'm going to teach you a very awesome cost-cutting idea for meals for your family and your guests. Okay, so I have got about a 4.5 to 5 pound beef tenderloin here. It's already been cleaned, but when you go to the butcher, ask them to clean it. Peel it and clean it. Okay. Peel it because there's always a fat piece on it that's a muscle, and you want to peel that muscle off. You can do it at home, but you might as well ask them to do it for you because it's not going to cost you anything.
And why don't you want to eat that part?
Because it's tough. And if you leave it on and cook it with it on, it shrinks up and it makes the beef get tough.
Oh, we don't want that.
No, we don't want that.
We don't want that.
So tenderloins are very expensive, and I know you're looking at me like, that's a whole tenderloin. Yes, retail, this runs about $100 to $125, but I'm gonna cut it into nice fillets. You may not know that a filet mignon comes from a beef tenderloin. Did you know that?
I did. That's the most tender part, right?
So it is. So we have 3 different parts to a tenderloin. We have the butt, that's the butt of the tenderloin, and we have the tail that gets a little skinnier at the end, and then we have this part in the middle that is the center. Sometimes on a restaurant menu it's called Chateaubriand, sometimes it's called center cut filet, but that's what this is. So I'm gonna cut these into about 6 or 8 ounce fillets. I'm not gonna weigh them, but if you have a scale at home and you wanna weigh them, you can. I just do them a nice thickness like that. So that's a nice piece of meat. Maybe your husband wants a little bigger cut, which is fine, but we're gonna go ahead and cut this up. And what I recommend is you buy a whole tenderloin and then you freeze what you're not gonna use. So you can cook 2 pieces and the rest of it's in the freezer, ready for your next meal. Look how pretty those are. They're nice and clean. There's no fat on them. That's the great thing about tenderloin. We've got some beautiful marbleization there.
And what's the difference between tenderloin and having a strip steak?
Well, so a strip steak is cut from a different part of the cow.
Right.
So if you have
it's not as tender.
If you have a T-bone, half of the T-bone is a strip steak and the other half is the tenderloin. So it's the piece of meat on the other side of the bone from the tenderloin. The tenderloin is called the tenderloin because it's the most tender piece of meat in the cow. It's the least worked. It only has 1 muscle that runs on it. And so that's why it's always tender. Now, you will have a lot of people argue with something I'm going to tell you. People will tell you to always buy prime beef, but I assure you, you can buy choice or even select tenderloin and it's going to be tender. You're going to save yourself a ton of money because they're only 2 per cow and they're always tender. Some of them have a little more fat than others, but they're always wonderful. So I've gotten, and we're going to keep cutting this. On this tail, I'm going to leave it whole because it's about the same weight as these others.
Okay.
And then I'm going to take the...
So you do between like 4 or 5 ounces?
4 to 6 to 8, like if your husband... You know, I know your husband, he's going to want a big old chunk of meat. So let's cut him a big old steak. So I cut those from the butt as it's fatter. Okay. So now we've got about a 6.5 ounce, or if I know my friend Craig, he's going to want an 8 ounce steak. So.
At least.
Well, you could just cook the whole butt and give him about 16, 18 ounces. But if you look at this, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 servings.
Wow.
So you take that, you know, that's less than $10 a serving for your family or for your guests, which is amazing.
It is.
All right, so one of the other tricks that I do, we're gonna just pick 2 of these to serve and cook right now. So we'll do these, we'll pick those 2, and I'm gonna put the rest of these aside. So what I do is I put these in Ziploc bags, or if you have a food saver, you can put them in an airtight bag and put them in the freezer. When you take them out of the freezer, put them in the bag in a bowl of water for about 30 minutes. They'll be completely thawed, and then you have easy and ready to cook for dinner. All right, so we're gonna make a chimichurri sauce to go on these.
Yummy.
Now, do you know why I do that?
To marinate the steak, to break down the fat?
No, not to break down the fat. There's no fat on this steak.
Oh, that's true.
So a tenderloin is really yummy and tender. It always doesn't have as much flavor as the other steaks because it doesn't have the fat.
Oh, that
fat
makes
gives
sense.
it the flavor.
Okay.
So we're going to add a little flavor by putting a chimichurri sauce on it.
Yummy.
A chimichurri sauce is something that almost all of you have at home all the time. It's 5 ingredients. It's olive oil, fresh parsley. You can use flat or curly. Salt, pepper, and garlic. I'm just gonna smash that garlic pot a little bit to cut these off. And if you need to do a whole lot of garlic, you can check out my video on how to peel a whole lot of garlic all at one time. But if you're just using one pot, it's fine. And I'm just gonna put that right into the blender as it is.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, just whole it, don't have to cut it up. And a nice handful of parsley. I usually cut the stems off. These are kind of stringy, don't want those. So just a nice handful of parsley. I'm going to do about a teaspoon of salt and maybe a half teaspoon of pepper. Put that in there. And now what we're going to do, we're going to put just a touch of oil in there to start. And then I'm going to turn it on, take the little top off. And you can see it starting to mix. We may need to give it a little more speed. Now that it's all chopped up, I'm just going to continue to pour oil in it. You're going to slowly drizzle the oil until it all starts to come together. You can see it starting to come together. Now you have a beautiful chimichurri sauce. You can chop it more if you like, if you want it smoother. You can just pour that into the bowl, Marcie. Look how pretty that is.
Yummy.
Now remember, we have salt, pepper, garlic, and parsley in here. So what I do is I just put the steak right in there, flip it over, and I'll put it right here on the cutting board. And then you can do this. Now, if you want to do this ahead of time, you can do this a couple hours ahead of time and let this sit on here, but you don't have to. So I'm going to put those right there. We're going to turn on this cassette burner and cook these right up, and you're going to see how yummy they are. I know you have to go, so I get to eat the meat all by myself.
Oh, no.
Well, that's not my fault.
She's gonna
That's
share
yours.
some.
Maybe. I was.
Save?
Maybe.
Maybe.
Okay. But wait, I'm going to go on and cook them. Just because she's leaving doesn't mean I don't get to eat the steak. So here we go. I've got a hot cast iron skillet. Remember, always hot, about 15 minutes. See how it's smoking? It's nice and hot. And these already have oil on them, so you do not need to put any more oil in the skillet. So I'm just going to put them right down, right in the skillet. Oh, look how pretty those are. And these are, you know, they're about 2 inches thick. So we're gonna go about a minute on each side, maybe a minute and a half. I'm gonna time it on my watch and we'll see how they turn out. Oh my goodness, that's smelling yummy. All right, it's been actually about a minute and a half. So I'm gonna go ahead and flip these over and you can see on the side how we've got a little cooking there. So that tells me that that part's pretty cooked. And now we're gonna flip it over and look, we have that nice sear on the outside. It's very important when you're cooking steaks to not move them. Otherwise you will not get an even caramelization on the outside. Same thing here, look at that, beautiful. Now, some people like their steaks medium rare, like me. I love my steak medium rare. But when I have guests over, sometimes they want a medium or sometimes they want them more done, even medium well. That's not my favorite, but that's okay. Everybody gets to eat what they want. So there are two things you can do. If you're doing this, you can cut a thinner steak for the person that wants it more well done, or you can take your steak out and then let the other one stay in. What I do is once I pull the one out that I want, I turn the fire off and just let the other one sit in the pan for about 5 minutes. It's always good to let your meat rest for 5 to 6 minutes before you eat it because it starts to absorb all of that juice back in. It'll bleed the juice out and then it drinks it back in. So that's just a trick if you have somebody in your family that maybe likes more done. But you see here I've got a thicker steak and a thinner steak. So that one is mine. And this one can be for somebody else who wants it more medium. So let's see, I think it's been about a minute now. Nope, we need a little more color on there. I just violated my own rule. I moved the steak. I shouldn't have done that. But I'm gonna give it just a little more time. Now see, this one would be perfect for me right now, but I got a friend that wants it a little more cooked. So I'm gonna leave it in for a couple of minutes. All right, so we've done a minute and a half on each side. And if you look at this, you can punch this and see this is still soft. So then we've got a nice medium rare here. On this one that's a little bit thinner, it's not going in so much. So this one's gonna be more medium. So I'm gonna pull this off. I'm actually gonna pull this one off too, so you can see them. And now, as I said, we're gonna let them sit for just a few minutes before we serve them, because see how the water, the liquid is, not water, but the liquid is coming out of this. It will drink some of that up. But what I'm gonna do while it's resting, this is another trick, I'm gonna put a little bit of this chimichurri right on top. Not the one that we marinated in, this is the other piece of it. And while it cools off, it's gonna drink in some of those yummy flavors. And I'm actually gonna turn it over a little bit. Hopefully I didn't get chimichurri on the camera. Okay, now we're gonna let this sit about a couple of minutes and we'll be right back to taste. All right, they've sat here for 5 minutes and I'm really hungry, so we're gonna taste them. I'm gonna actually cut them both for you so you can see the difference. So this one should be somewhere between rare and medium rare. So look, it's got a nice color in it. Now that's how I like my steak. You may not like it that way. It's nice and warm on the inside, but still very tender and very rare. And I'm thinking this one's gonna be, because it was much thinner cut, you can see. And you see now, this is a more medium piece of meat. So let's give these a try. I'm gonna eat this one that I like. That is so yummy. Now I think it needs a little more salt. You can add a little more salt or not. You should taste it first and see if you like it. Thank you for joining me today. Well, and Marcie too. She left, so that's okay. We love her. We're here to make your life easy. Make sure you make it fun, make it easy, but most of all, enjoy the experience. Cheers.